Afternoon, Tatiana, and welcome to CWS as it is.
Hi, afternoon. Thank you so much for having me.
Tiana, could you please tell us a bit about you and why you started this business?
Well, I never saw myself here, that's for sure. I have always been a little bit travel obsessed, wanting to know as much about the world as I can, but never really in a position to travel extensively outside of Jamaica and the United States, which, it's a very close community between Jamaica and New York, Jamaica and Florida, for example. So I ended up working after graduating from UA with a degree in integrated marketing communications. Ended up working at the legendary and somewhat infamous Hedonism Tour Resort. And that was my first taste of the tourism industry. After 2 years and face to face, one on one, and sometimes group interactions with tourists that don't really see much of Jamaica outside of the airport, the bus ride to the resort, and then back to the airport from the resort, it occurred to me that I could open up their world by introducing them to another side of Jamaica, and it's something that I'm aiming to do through Local Pathway.
And how long have you been in business?
Well, I registered the company last year in April, and since then I have been putting together all the necessary paperwork so that I can be a registered domestic tour operator. Meanwhile, juggling my work schedule and free time.
How would you say your education and experience prepared you for what you're doing today?
For what I'm doing today with Local Pathway, well, the degree in IMC, it definitely helped me with ideas on the marketing side of things. So I don't have to really outsource for that. I'm pretty confident in my ability to market the company and put together all necessary marketing materials and even the web development, etc. I didn't really have to outsource much for that. The website isn't up yet, by the way, but should be by the end of September. The Working in the tourism industry from the hotel standpoint, it gave me a lot of insight into the habits of travelers. So when they come in, there's only so much you can do at the resort when you're staying for a week to 10 days, even 2 weeks at some point. You'll get bored. You eventually drift over to the tour desk to see how best you can leave. So watching those patterns of behavior gave me insight into the fact that you really don't want to have a cookie cutter vacation, even if that's what you pay for. So you find ways and means of expanding. And I think that with Local Pathway, in the packages that I created for the company, I think my IMC and hedonism experience, they go hand in hand. And that's what's going to make this product unique. Better.
Yes. So, what were some of the main challenges you faced early in your venture?
All right. Well, one of them is that there's a lot of paperwork that's necessary for setting up a company locally.
Hmm.
The company's office, they were very helpful for someone who's a first time on no business background. So for everything that was necessary to set the company up, that was it was fine. But the challenge I ran into was when I had to deal with the companies in the tourism sector because there's a lot of training involved. They take it pretty seriously down here as the number one economic earner for the country. So there's a lot of challenge in getting the domestic tour license, for example. As I mentioned, this company was formed last year, April, and I'm still waiting for it. So I haven't been able to market to my full potential as a result of not having that license.
With all the challenges you face and all the roadblocks, what keeps you going? Why do you keep pushing ahead?
Oh, I definitely believe in the company, and I think it's well, there are two things that really make me continue, other than it being a dream of mine and like a personal reflection of myself. This company, Kingston. I believe that with the new North South and Ocho in under an hour, that's going to open up the country's capital to more tourists that are always been curious, but you know, since Kingston is out of the way, so that right there, me thinking that Kingston is poised to become a great tourist destination in its own right, keeps me going. And the other thing is that looking forward, because the company is targeted at millennials, and since they are going to be the ones to keep the Jamaican tourism industry going in the future, I think that getting a foothold in that market right now, no matter how small, it can only be beneficial for the business and for the country as a whole later on.
When someone hears the name Local Pathway Limited, and how did you come up with that name, by the way?
All right. So initially, I had wanted to name the company Bon Voyage because a friend of mine told me that it means safe travels, and I wanted it because it's a direct juxtaposition to the dangerous Kingston image that's out there. So, Bon Voyage, safe travels to Kingston. But something I realized while I was searching to see if the name was available is Bon Voyage is pretty common as it relates to tour companies. So I put a number of words together in this book I had that I was just writing down all my ideas, and I just started matching them. Words that were associated with the business setup that I had in my mind. So it's definitely a local thing, off the beaten path. And you know, you just write down a lot of things. Walkabout, pathway, had local. At one point I thought I was going to end up calling it travel like the locals do, but then it seems really, really long and I need to keep it short. You know, that's a marketing degree there coming back in, because once you can say something in, well, a short time span, seems to do better. I mean, look at it. Google, Facebook, Instagram. That can't be a coincidence, right?
Right. Yahoo.
Right? Bing, all those big names. So I wanted to make it as short as I could. And when I put those two words together at random, it just seemed to fit.
What do you hope people will come away with once they hear that name?
Well, I hope that in time, Local Pathway will build up a brand identity that's synonymous with authenticity and the real Jamaica.
Let's talk a little bit about you operating out of Kingston or focusing on Kingston. With all that, well, I mean, you hardly can live in the United States and not see movies about Kingston and all the dangers and the challenges, and of course, people thinking that you know, Kingston is this place where there's lots of danger. What do you have to say about that?
What I have to say about that is the same media that shows you that Kingston is dangerous is the same media that would have you thinking, for example, that Africa is one country instead of a continent filled with many countries, and that everyone over there is suffering from starvation. Yes. For example, one of the most violent things to happen in Kingston in recent times was the Tivoli Garden incursion in 2010, when the US government attempted to extradite Christopher Dodosco. All you would see on CNN and BBC, I think it even ended up on Al Jazeera at one point, if I'm not mistaken, was that Kingston is under fire and it's a war going on between local gangs, and the police and the military is called in, and so much drama. You would think that Kingston was that small cross section. I was in Kingston the entire time going on about my business.
How far from Kingston did you grow up?
I actually grew up just outside of Kingston in a community called Portmore. It's a suburb that's very close by. And it was since I began university that I moved back to Kingston.
Local pathways. Where do you see it in 5 years?
Oh, in 5 years, I see Local Pathway spread out, becoming a company with its own identity. Because what Local Pathway is an experience for persons who want to live like the locals do. They want to see all the hidden treasures that a country has to offer. So it's going to deal with everything, because at the end of the day, I still want for anybody that's booking with Local Pathway to have ease of access. So just come through this company and we'll take care of booking accommodation. We'll take care of all your transportation. We will take care of pretty much everything except booking your flight, which you're responsible for. So because we're going into all of these sectors in 5 years, I would like for Local Pathway to be an established company, especially among universities in North America and the United Kingdom. But asset wise, I definitely see where we don't outsource our transportation any longer and we own our own fleet of buses, as well as looking to begin conversations on opening a hostel here in Kingston and one in the Blue Mountains as well.
Let's talk about how you go about operating Local Pathway, especially for young people, other young people looking at you for some sort of guidance and so on. How are you able to expand or to do the different things that you do?
Well,
And
first things first.
let me finish that question.
Yeah.
Let me make it a little whole. How are you able to do all that you do with limited resources?
You need partnerships. Recognizing that you cannot do it alone.
Uh-huh.
It's a blow to the ego, not going to lie, but it's a necessary part of the process.
So
Necessary.
what is it about partnerships that intimidates some people or frightens them, and to others who understand it, they go jump right into it? Why are you, well, first I should ask you, are you comfortable with partnerships? Are they working for you?
I am. It Partnerships, they've been working out for me ever since I went into it. I understand that some people are apprehensive when it comes to that, but I've never been. Maybe it's a bit arrogant of me perhaps, but I just felt like if I went through with a partnership and we're both on the same page as to what each party is expected to do and what we're expected to gain, then we shouldn't have any trouble.
What are some things one should look for in partnerships?
Look for someone you can definitely trust,
Mm-hmm.
someone with a good record, because you don't want, as a person going in, especially if you are just starting out, to have your reputation tainted by dealing with someone that has a shady past. So definitely the reputation of anyone you're going into partnership with, it must be impeccable.
Tatiana, why should anyone hire you? Three reasons.
Three.
Yes, three.
All right, three reasons. You should hire me because I am a meticulous person that's going to take care of you every single step of the way. And this is coming from my experience as a group sales manager at Hedonism, where I've seen firsthand the number of things that can go wrong when someone books a vacation. And I'll be there with you from the day you express interest all the way down until we drop you off at the airport and you're dreaming about coming back again. The second reason is one of the partnerships that I am particularly satisfied with is my partnership with Juta. As a young entrepreneur that's began this company using her own savings, I didn't have the capital to purchase buses, but Juta, they have been around pretty much since the inception of the Jamaica tourist industry. They have the best reputation out there. The drivers are very professional. All the vehicles are above standard. So you'll know that you're absolutely safe in anywhere that you go. And the third reason, you can't afford not to hire me.
I like that. Uh, how does one find you right now?
How does what?
How does one find you?
Work? Find me?
Yes, how does someone?
It's been through word of mouth. Whenever I get excited about something, I tend to talk about it a lot. I have not been using my social media to promote it at all because, like I mentioned before, we don't have the domestic tour license.
Right.
But I do get a bit chatty when I'm around my friends, So they've been referring me to people who they know are coming in, and the response has been pretty good so far. And the one I'm most proud of, actually, is a friend of mine is a professor of journalism at Clark Atlanta University in Georgia, and every year he brings down a contingent of students for a study abroad program at UWI. And when I told him about the company, he hired me to take them on 2 excursions, and the feedback was phenomenal. I have the testimonials written down, and I cannot wait to get them up on the website as soon as it's launched, so that people can see what it's like from somebody else's perspective.
One thing you mentioned that intrigued me is that you used your own funds. What was that like?
Oh, so liberating. I was fortunate, very fortunate to have, well, for one, to have graduated UWI without any student loans to pay. And I'm so thankful to my parents for ensuring that that happened. And the other way in which I'm really lucky is that I never had to spend a lot of time looking for work. I ended up beginning at Hedo a week after I finished school. And that position, it came with housing and everything that I could possibly need for living. So I am not exactly the party type. So I didn't really spend a lot on going out. And I had that little nest egg at my disposal when I decided I was definitely going to go forward with starting the company.
I just want to go to the chat room where Nick MacD said, Tatiana is not meticulous, she's worse. This is a good thing for what she wants to launch into. Tatiana, you mentioned your parents. How did they react when they first found out that you want to get into business for yourself?
I'll tell you a funny story. My my father, when he heard that I got the job at Hedo, he was not as enthusiastic as everybody else, because I thought, oh my goodness, this is amazing. I have a job. It's been like a week. I started 2 days. What am I going to do, Mom? I need clothes for work. I'm so not prepared. I thought, and everyone was so excited. Do you know what this man looks at me and says? That's a good thing, sweetheart, but remember, no one in this family works for anybody else.
Oh.
So he expected me to be an entrepreneur, but he always said he thought I would end up opening a public relations, image consulting type of firm or something. He never saw this particular company coming, but he expected me to work for myself.
But is that something you would have done if you had not started Local Pathway Limited?
Eventually, yes. Definitely not this young. I think I would have wanted a lot more experience in the industry before going out on my own, because it's very competitive down here and there's a lot to learn. So I don't think I'd have felt as confident if I was supposed to go the way he thought.
You're young, you're brilliant, you're very articulate, you're experienced, committed and passionate. I picked that up. What do you think it can mean, your endeavor, owning your own business so young? What do you think it can mean to other young women looking up at you for some kind of guidance or advice?
I hope it means to them that it's something that they can do, because I'm 100% sure of it. If I can do it, anyone can.
How are you convinced you're cut out for this after being in business for
only 2 years, right?
Yeah.
Trust me, it's something I ask myself all the time. Like, where do you get the nerve to be running your own business at this stage with that little experience? And I'm telling you, I know for a fact, if I had stuck to the public relations track that I had seen myself on meanwhile I was in college, I would not have been doing this at all. But I don't know. I think the amount of pressure and all the responsibility that came with working at the management level so early, it just gave me a confidence boost and made me feel as if, as long as I put my mind to it, had the right people around, asked for help when I needed it, I could do it.
What excites you a lot about doing this?
Oh my God. Well, other than getting to travel to all my favorite spots in the country, it's the reaction of others. I
Tatiana?
um,
Uh-huh.
I have a friend. His name is Marcus Schroeter, and he's from Italy. Comes to Jamaica twice a year. He's the first person I met at Heathrow. I remember I met him in the omelet line, my first morning of work, and we've been friends ever since. And when I told him I was starting a company, he cut his vacation in half because he stays for 2 weeks at a time. And he said, "You know what? I'm giving you a week. Show me, use me as your guinea pig. I'll tell you what you need to tweak. I'll let you know what I like, what I dislike, all of that." And he absolutely loved it. He teared up while we were at the Bob Marley Museum because he has such a deep connection to the music. He says it's the music that made him visit Jamaica in the first place. So the fact that the Bob Marley Museum was the first stop on our journey once he got into Kingston, he was very moved by it. And in turn, I was very moved by that. And it's what I look forward to, and it's what I hope to bring to people, that connection to the real Jamaica that's, outside of the resort walls.
What are some other places you take people to, other than the Bob Marley Museum?
Well, Bob Marley Museum is standard, must, a definite must, no matter what. Something else that I love to expose people to is Port Royal, because Pirates of the Caribbean was such a huge franchise hit. Everyone loves it, even though it's so small. I mean, majority of Port Royal is at the bottom of the ocean, but they really enjoy just walking around and looking at the old structures and going into the museum and eating the fish. It's wonderful. But outside of Kingston, I love to take people to the Blue Mountains because the slogan of the company is also the tour model, which is City Mountain Sea. So no matter which package you book with Local Pathway, you have to get a taste of the Caribbean Sea, the Blue and John Crow Mountains, as well as the city of Kingston. So in the Blue Mountains, there are lots of hiking trails that lead up to the national park, that lead up to the peak, and people really love it. If you're not a hiker, what we do is we try to get you to go down to the Rastafarian village, because the Rastafari culture is a worldwide phenomenon, and people love to see how they live their authentic lives. And, of course, the famous herb that comes with it.
What about people who are thinking, well, you're taking us up in the mountains, or you're suggesting we go into the Rastafarian villages, but what about security? We see so many things in the movies and all these various dangers. What do you say to that?
What I say to that is there is always a tour guide that is present to act as your guide, sure, but for security purposes as well, because it's not just that you need to be cautious when you're in a foreign country. There's also, nature will attack. So having someone who's familiar with the terrain is an absolute must. But what you see in the movies is, like many things, an exaggeration for entertainment purposes. And I guarantee you, when you go up into the Blue Mountains where life moves at such a perfect pace, you're not going to see any gangster types wielding guns and machetes or whatever it is.
Should this idea of entrepreneurship really catch on among the youth, how do you see it benefiting young people? Well, how do you see it benefiting young people, but also Jamaica?
Well, economically,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely, because the with the crisis that the Jamaican dollar is under right now, 9 to 5, it's really not going to cut it for the generation coming up. You know what I mean?
Yes.
The side hustle, the necessity of a side hustle is very real. And if it is that you aren't going the way of being an entrepreneur part time, but full time, I think that's even better, because what I find is when you have no choice but to work because you're not absolutely sure that, hey, it's the end of the month, I'm getting this paycheck, what happens is that is when your best self comes out as an entrepreneur, because you have no one to depend on but yourself. So the effort that you put in, it drives the company, it drives you as a person, and you end up inspiring others along the way to do just that. So entrepreneurship, it's catching on, and I think it needs to continue steadily on the increase
If
for
you
economic reasons.
if you could turn the hands of time back, what would you to when you first started? What would you do differently?
Ooh, differently. Well, I would not have started so early. Meanwhile, I was still working. That's for sure.
No.
The demands of the job is one of the reasons why it has taken me to this point to finally have, say, 99% of what I need to submit for the domestic tour license. I just sort of took for granted that I would work on it because it's something I created, but my workaholic nature, it kept me chained to my desk for the most part. So I developed local pathway little by little over a long period of time instead of focusing on it and building up a proper timeline to say that, all right, this is when I'm going to do X, Y, Z, and then this is when I'm going to launch.
What of
And XYZ would have been all of the necessities that I needed to get into place, that I almost have everything in place for now to launch.
what have all these experiences taught you about yourself? What have you learned?
That I am a pretty confident person. It's not something that you really give any thought to.
Uh-huh.
Like you don't really sit down thinking, should I consider myself confident or am I laid back? Am I no? But the fact that with no experience, just an idea and a passion to see it come to life, I just shut off and started a company. I'm
What
a confident woman.
what keeps you going when it gets really tough?
Well, when it gets really tough, encouragement from friends and family
Mhm.
definitely keep me going. I have to credit business partner, well, one actual partner and one potential future business partner. I definitely have to credit them with their encouraging words that I use as pick me ups every time I fall into a rut and I'm saying, okay, I should be focusing on this, but I have work. And then it's a horrible process. But once I get back on top of it, it's all smooth sailing. And it never lasts more than like a day.
That's good. Let me read a few comments from Nick MCD. People need to stop watching Fox News toward World Cup and shatters. Kingston is like any other city worldwide. You have to be careful and be on your P's and Q's. Kingston is the best destination in Jamaica. What do you say to that?
I used to hear so much about well, some of the guests that come to Hito, they travel extensively, so they go all over the world. And I heard so many stories about, oh, when someone stole my backpack when I was in Rome, and this one time when I was in London, I got mugged, and I'm saying, what? That's amazing.
Tatiana, thank you. Thank you so
Wow.
much. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So have a wonderful evening and we'll chat some other time.
All right,
And
so take care of yourself.
best of luck with the business.
Thank you so much.
All right, bye bye.
Bye bye.